Welcome to Ducks Don't Get Cold Feet, and I'm talking to my good friend Angelo Kotses, and I've taken over.
Whoa! What's going on here, Dad? You can't run everything.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Who says I
Who signs
can?
the checks?
Out you get.
Who signs the checks, my friend?
God.
Come on.
This is not
What are you doing?
Angelo. I'm sorry.
You going to join us a bit later on? Or?
No.
You can sit him in the corner if he wants to hear some.
When you're ready, come and sit down and have a
Yeah,
chat.
sit down. Throw Rod in there. All right, Ange. So, looked like Dad tried to hijack stuff just then. You want headphones on or off? Up to you.
You're telling me what to do now?
No,
Okay,
it
fine.
sounds your voice sounds perfect, but when you put them on, you'll love it because you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So here we are. I think there's already been an introduction here. So Ducks Don't Get Cold Feet. This is number 11.
Wow.
Podcast number 11. So we haven't been doing it too long, but we've been having a ball doing here. But we're here with the MD of Bickford's Australia, Angelo Kotses. Kotses. So Angelo.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And I know you don't do these things too often. And in fact, getting information about you is quite difficult. And we had to call a few people to ask a few favours. So I really appreciate
They will
you
suffer.
we're not going to give up our sources. And moving forward, we're going to talk about all things South Australia. I'm going to talk a bit about retail. Well, I guess let's get straight into it.
Happy to do so.
So we go back and have a look at the Angelo Kotses. Okay, so we go have a look at your history here.
Ooh.
And we do look back into what it was like when you were a child. Can you remember that far back?
I can only remember back when we'd emigrated to Australia and I got into grade 2.
Yep.
And my first day at school that I was taken to school, went to school at Burke Street Primary School in Sydney, which is in Redfern, in a pretty tough area back in those days.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't understand a word of English. And when my mum took me to school, she didn't realise that I actually walked back because I didn't know anybody and I sat at the front of our house. And that was my learning about what it was like to be in Australia, not knowing anything about the language. But then it built resilience, didn't it?
Oh, we would have to build resilience, and that's starting in Sydney.
Yep.
Redfern, it's a little bit more of a flasher suburb these days.
Yeah, it is.
But going back then, so we talk about when did you start to learn English?
In grade 2. As soon as I went to school, one of the things you realise is when you meet some, amazing people and you talk to some good people and you build up a knowledge and an understanding of where things are at. And school was fantastic. I pitied the teachers that I dealt with because, I think they'd probably recognise it now as being ADHD. It was like, oh, there's a chicken. I'd be off in that direction. But I think that's led to, where I am today. Don't follow the norm. Just be who you are and be honourable and truthful to yourself.
So were you brought up in Sydney?
Brought up in Sydney. So Burke Street Primary School till grade 6, and then I went to Randwick Boys High School. Randwick Boys is, was a bit more affluent area. It's where they played a lot of rugby, and I think I was one of the very, very few, as we were called back then, ethnics.
Yep.
Who played the round ball, which is what we call football. And I recognised football was the better sport as compared to rugby. When I got in a scrum in rugby and my thumb got caught in the ground and about 16 people piled over the top of me, and I thought, this is a game for mugs. That led to me having a passion for soccer, and I love my soccer, and I had a wonderful opportunity to meet Bobby Charlton, who was one of the greats, of Manchester United. I went to see Pele play when Santos came and played against Australia at Sydney Sports Ground, and I had an absolute ball playing soccer. I always thought it was going to be something professional, but then I thought, no. And as soon as I got an injury, there's no money in soccer.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't say that's the case right now, is it?
So from Randwick, Mum and Dad decided to moved to Adelaide because at that time it was 1975. It was the Sydney property boom, and Mum and Dad had a home in our home in Redfern, another one in a place called Kensington.
Yep.
And a friend of theirs lived in Adelaide, and he said, this state's really progressive. And Dad made a visit to Adelaide.
So this is in 1975.
This is 1975. So Dad said South Australia's progressive. Had a mate of his here, and he recognised that if he sold his 2 homes in Sydney, he could buy his home and a block of flats. And it was like, hallelujah.
So nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed. I know property's been in my blood, since then.
But, people in Sydney, I just had a mate move back from Sydney and he had like a $2 million house and he came to Adelaide and all of a sudden he's got the flashiest place possible and he goes, oh, you couldn't happen. I was living in a dingy unit in Sydney. I was like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So,
well, there's things to be said about Sydney and I still love the place. When you fly into that harbour,
it's amazing.
It's the most beautiful harbour in the world, and once you've been a part of Sydney, it's fine, but Adelaide's home. And then I went to I call it Croydon Grammar, which is Croydon Boys High, or Croydon Tech as it was called back then.
Yep.
Which is a pretty tough school again. In fact, one of the guys who used to work with us, Terry Haddadge, who's got a celebration store at Henley Beach now, and he used to beat me up. And then I got into work for me, so he suffered with me for about 10 years. But it, tough school, and we matriculated back in 1977.
Yeah. So, what were you like as a student at school?
At school, I was actually pretty good. I recognised that it was year 11 when parent-teacher night. Our teacher at school pulled mum and dad aside and said, for maths, I was getting the double U, which is the worst you can get.
Yep.
There's no Z's, it was a double U. And the teacher said to mum and dad, it'll be a good opportunity for your son to leave school and go and learn a trade, like to become a mechanic. And that was the turning point in my life when I got back home and Dad and Mum really got stuck into me. They said, we didn't leave the country, of our birth to come here to the country of our choice to have you become a mechanic. Not that I've got anything against mechanics, they do a great job. But from then on, I decided to, pull my head in. And, sometimes you say, wonderful people come into your life. And at that time, it was a guy called Michael Gubbins who came into my life when... After this day, I walked to the local newspaper shop because I used to love reading. I'd take in all this information because the information is really important to know. And as I walked past the shop, it was when we were living in Devon Park, I walked past the shop and this guy had just come in from Darwin. Cyclone Tracy had just gone through. And this guy looked at me and said, you don't look okay. You all right? And I said, I just had a pretty terrible day with a maths teacher yesterday. And he said, I should become a mechanic. He said, well, what are you failing? And I said, well, maths 1 and 2. He said, well, I'll tutor you after school. Little did I know the day after, it was almost everyone in the class had to get tutored. So every day we decided to actually get tutored by this guy. He did it off his own back, and it was from 3:30 till 5:55. Because we needed to allow 5 minutes to get back home because at 6 o'clock Get Smart started. And that was an important thing in our lives. And if you haven't seen Get Smart, you should. He's one of my heroes.
COVID might not have seen Get Smart.
Oh, I think it's one of the greatest comedies there is. So Michael decided to tutor us, and at the end of year 11, I ended up getting a C and a D for Maths 1 and Maths 2. I got into year 12 with Maths 1S, graduated from Croydon, and that was very, very huge for Croydon because not many people actually graduated from there. Most people ended up either going into prison or going to become a mechanic.
Yeah.
And from there I went into what is now called the Uni of SA. Got a marketing degree there.
Yes,
and studied that for a few years. But in between then, I actually got a job working at McDonald's.
Stop right there.
Okay, I'll stop right there.
So since Dad's in the room, and we're trying to get him to do a podcast, but he doesn't want to. What's it actually like working with my old man?
Look, one of the key things that we have in our business, the number one item that we have is an item called integrity. And that's where I value your dad with. He says what he's going to do, he's honourable in what he does, and he's fair.
Can you remember when you first came across him?
Yeah. Well, he may not remember this. No.
I don't know if I want to know this.
Well, no, I actually do remember coming here. It was I was sent by my boss to go and query a claim. That was given to me by a guy called Chris Case. Hopefully he's still around.
He's around.
Yeah. I had to go and query a claim, and Casey came in and I said, listen, Peter Kamanis was my boss, and he said, can you go and query this? They ordered 100 cartons and we've got a bill here for 200. What do you do? I said, Do you want me to go in? It's not my account, not my area, and I've got to go and deal with this. And I did, but it was in the end, Roger came in and just sort of said, well, if that's what it is, that's what it is. And he actually did the right thing by the business. And that's when I thought, well, this guy's got a lot of integrity. And he still has today. Even though he's, 65 now?
Mate, he's telling everyone he's 39.
Well, I've got to say, 60 is the new 50. I really do feel like that. I think it's so true.
I feel younger if that makes you old guys feel any better.
Well, then we're wiser. Let's call it that.
Okay. So you've obviously had so this has gone back a long time, actually.
We're talking, when did I join? I joined Nestle in 1982 as a marketing graduate.
You joined.
And it was just a wonderful training experience as a marketer to come in to learn how to sell. And I always keep saying the most greatest opportunities one has to build their character is you don't learn when it's an easy sell, you learn when it's a tough sells. And you're talking about the tough sells back then as being, the Drake's team having to do actually a sell job. And I was even going back in the days of half case and, Bob Hammond, I'm going back that far. There used to be pardon me for saying, a shit old half case on Torrens Road at Kilkenny there. You learn from those sort of people, the Phil Destinos, of the world, who were really, really tough to do a deal with. But when you did a deal, you did the right deal. So I learned that an easy sell is when you give things away. A tough sell is when you actually grow. And I think that's the most important thing I've found in life is growth comes not from your easiest experiences. Growth comes from your most difficult challenges because I think you've placed them there so you can grow.
Yeah, 100%, and I think that's why Dad still doesn't pay out any dividends.
Well, that means, there is a difference between 30% and 17%. And I think I joined your dad, and I was advised by our accountants. I think we're going to have to start delivering a dividend. I said, yeah, but I've never touched the money. I keep investing it in the business.
You two, do you guys have secret meetings together? Because I've been here in Israel like that.
Yeah, 17%. Who wants to pay that? The differential. The minute you call it, you still don't see it. That's the thing. You still don't see it.
So let's go back. McDonald's. I'm a big fan of McDonald's. I think they produce fantastic people from their training programs. They have a fantastic product, like literally all around the world. It's almost identical, give or take. You started working for McDonald's in 1982.
Yeah. Well, no, actually before that, it was 5 years. It was actually 1977, 78, I think it was. Just as I graduated from school, got into uni, because I needed to pay my way through uni.
So you graduated in 1980? Or was it
1977 at Croydon, but then graduated in 1980 at uni. But I'd started at McDonald's, and sad story. It was the corner of South and Torrens Road was the store.
Yep.
And I saw a big lineup of people. And I thought, these people are giving away free hamburgers. So I got in the line and I went downstairs. And by the time I got down to the bottom of the stairs, I'm thinking, it doesn't look like I'm going to get a hamburger here. And the person said, are you interested in a job? I said, well, not really. I'm interested in a hamburger. They said, but do you want a job? I said, sure. So I started that following weekend and doing setups. And
is this serious?
Yeah, true story. True story.
So they were actually hiring.
They're hiring people.
Not giving away for free.
No, I was hoping for a free hamburger. So I got the job and I started doing setups. And that is opening up the store. And I've got to be honest, it's the greatest training I've ever had in my life because here I was at 17 years of age. When I got to being store manager, I had between 45 and 60 people reporting to me.
Yeah.
And to learn how to manage people, was an incredible experience. When people say working for McDonald's or Burger King or whoever, is not good experience, I think it's one of the greatest experiences in the world because you learn humbleness, you learn systems, you learn from the best in the world because they've made every mistake there is in the world. And in fact, I remember bringing your dad some books on management experiences from McDonald's that I did. That was back in about 1982, 1983. And I'll tell you, this is where don't ever begrudge those sort of jobs, because remember Brian Quinn, he started pushing trolleys, at Coles here in Adelaide, and he became the managing director of Coles. There's nothing wrong with that. And a true story with me, when I became store manager, there was a guy who was brought in from Sydney to be looking after South Australia. And his name was Charlie Bell. And Charlie was my supervisor for a while. And he was just exceptional. So he would come in unannounced on a Saturday afternoon and do a store audit on you. And he would rate you. And to show how you can meet up with Charlie Bell ended up becoming the managing director of McDonald's in Australia. I met him the following time when he became managing director of McDonald's in the UK. And then I had the awesome experience of seeing the guy when he was running McDonald's globally in Chicago.
Wow.
Just to have a look at their operation. So, when you think you start off turning hamburgers and you meet the managing director of one of the world's biggest businesses, one of the biggest property companies in the world, in their office, and he's humble as what he is, don't ever begrudge any opportunity you get in life. I think the worst thing one could do is just be sitting at home, watching the TV, getting, numb in the head as compared to going out there and learning something about life.
Yeah, and just doing.
Yeah.
And that's why you do see those experiences. How did you first come about the first experience?
Which one, McDonald's?
Not with...
with Charlie.
Yeah.
He was my supervisor. So he comes in.
So where's he from? He's from Adelaide.
No, he's actually from Sydney.
Yeah.
He was seen as being one of the new generation of young stars. There's two guys who started McDonald's in Australia. One was a guy called Peter Ritchie, and another one called Bob Mansfield, who was his 2IC. And they sent Charlie away, to learn. The other one who was with Charlie at the time was another guy called Guy Russo, who I know, and Guy ended up running Kmart and making it successful here in Australia. So it's amazing, the people you meet. And one of the things the McDonald's say within their words is, it's a system, and the system does work. I still remember today, in the front of the manual, the manager's manual, is Ray Kroc saying, you criticise in private and you praise in public.
Yeah.
And that's one of the mantras that's, still there for me today. And I think that's an important, piece of information that anyone can use.
Yeah, that's amazing. Because, like I say, I'm a bit of a fan. Dad, if you want to go at any time, just walk out.
Oh,
I'm just flagging.
I
can't tell. Yeah, let's say because he's enjoying this. Because you're one of his. You're definitely one of his mentors that he looks up to. So.
The feeling's mutual. There's a love fest going on.
Yeah, there's a bit of a bromance going on here. But with McDonald's, we did a story the other week on a retail wrap, and we found out that the Big Mac's only 82% Australian. And that brought us down...
Which one, the meat?
Yeah, no, so the whole burger. So it brought us down to the sauce. Do you know what the secrets are in the secret sauce?
I don't. Heinz used to make it back in those days. I'm pretty sure they do. I'd be surprised that if it's 82% not Australian. Because I remember going through the F.J. Walker factory when I was touted as one of the potential heroes. And I knocked back the job as the first brand manager for McDonald's.
Really?
Yeah. And I'd just gotten married back in 82, and Charlie had moved back. And he said, "Can you come and be my first brand manager?" And I thought, I can't, pick up my wife and daughter and move to Sydney. This is home. And so it was an incredible experience to do that. But I went through the F.J. Walker factory, and the meat's Australian.
Yes, it is.
The buns
100%.
the buns were made back then by Buttercup.
Yes. So the sauce we have since discovered.
It's not made in Australia.
Look, I don't want to make claims that I can't 100%, but we put it out to McDonald's to come back to us with why it's only 82%.
You should be selling it here. I think they sell it in Costco.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Well, you can't say those words here.
What? Yeah. Look, they're a good retailer.
They are a great retailer. Unfortunately, Charlie passed in 2005.
Yeah, I went to his funeral in Sydney. I went there, and that was the first time I actually met John Howard. Because he was there when he was Prime Minister of Australia, and actually the funeral was not too far from, the second home that we were at, and I'd got to know a lot of people in McDonald's, back in those days, and Charlie died of bowel cancer, very, very young. I think it was only 40-odd years old, but a doyen in his life, and it was just honourable again. For some reason I get to be a magnet for people that. I respect, and I respect your dad. I respect people like Morris Crotty. You can see they've got the same values, and do you know what? It doesn't happen. It's almost like you attract people with the same values, and you detract people who don't have those values.
Well, when it was going around the laws of attraction, like when you talk,
it still is true.
Yeah, and it's like my wife says to me all the time
that which unto itself is
Yeah,
drawn.
it's like, I'll get a park out the front. And she goes, how the fuck do you get parks out the front all the time? I said, because I just think I'm going to get a park. And it's a simple way of looking at what you put out there, you get back in spades. And I look at it with Dad where, he's a straight shooter. Yeah. And, we see lots of things that in our industry might not necessarily be straight shooting, but Dad always makes that call. And it's such an admirable trait is that you do attract those people around you. And someone said to me the other day, you're only as, you are your top 5 friends, you're pretty much a piece of all of those because that's where you're getting all your information from. And
totally agree.
What you're saying is really cements that.
Well, look at the most basic of principles, and I've got to be honest with you, I did fail physics in year 11 because I wasn't all that smart. But then I started to understand because I've got a passion for reading books. I love reading books and I love information. And I still remember the quote by Albert Einstein: "Energy can never be created; it can never be destroyed. It just is and changes form." So when you look at that and you say, "Well, how can that be?" So it means that you are technically eternal. Yeah. Because if you can't be destroyed, you change form. It just says to you, how do these things happen? How does the deja vu happen? And how does you manifesting a car park happen?
I don't know how it does happen.
Well, it does. You create it.
But it's very often too.
Oh.
On multiple occasions, you get that.
Well, have you ever found when you're in a shit mood, does being in a shit mood actually help you get out of it? When somebody's in a shit mood and you get in a shit mood, do you get out of it?
Yeah, no, not at all.
You've got to be the positive one that gets out of it.
Totally.
That which unto itself is drawn is the secret of the law of attraction, which is so true.
And that law of attraction is using the universal energy field.
Which is, what are we? Energy.
That's it, and that's totally it.
This shouldn't be on this sort of radio show. We should be talking about groceries. But
no, we talk about anything, and that's why people like listening to it because I'm quite positive, and every now and then you have a bad. Everyone has a bad day.
Yeah.
But it's how you look at it. It's how you react.
What's your lesson in it? Yeah. What's your lesson in everything?
I think
everything.
I've always said that there can always be worse.
But you create that, though.
Yeah.
You can create the worst environment. It's up to you.
Totally. And to me, it's never bad.
Yeah.
And in my head, I never look at things as too dark or too bad or not being able to get out of a bad situation. I'm always taking the most productive and most positive outlook of like, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this, and I create that everywhere I go.
Yeah.
So it's just when you speak to some people, they might not feel that energy that you're giving off or you're attracting as well, and that's when you get people that might not necessarily like you or whatever, but they don't understand how you can think like that in a certain time frame. And the COVID-19 has been one of those examples of how can you guys be so positive?
Well, if you think about it, as there's a wonderful book called A Course in Miracles, which is incredibly difficult to read.
A Course in
Miracles. Incredibly difficult to read, but it says there are 2 forms. There is love and fear. That's it. They are the polarities of each other. So you can either choose to live in love or choose to live in fear. If you choose to live in fear, guess what you're going to get back?
Fear.
And a fear. And I think that's, when you say, COVID, I have to be honest with you, I've been so, I'm not going to say I'm positive, I'm not fearful.
Yeah.
I'm not fearful.
Yeah.
If you don't fear, if you think you're eternal, you shouldn't be fearful.
Yeah.
If you're fearful, you're going to get what's coming to you. And that's, as you said, the law of attraction.
What's been one of those, I'm not a person that reads a book and goes back and reads it again.
I do.
You come across as a person that will reread. What's been one of your go-to books? And I don't have this problem, but what's a go-to book that you feel, or is it depending on what mood you're in, if I'm going to, a bit of self-help, bit of learning, or more business-minded, or is there something?
I used to be very, very business-oriented. Yeah. Used to be. But then I found that at some point you can read a lot about business, but you're hearing someone else's story about business. And the one thing that I actually have come to understand a lot more is that all your answers are within you, and everything comes from within. So therefore, I'm more into, I call them quite esoteric, sort of books like, every morning now, I'll get up at Hal Elrod has got the Miracle Equation book, and I'm actually getting up at 4:00 in the morning anyway, because I'm the primary carer for my wife.
Yeah.
And by getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm actually able to meditate.
Okay.
And I found that that's made me, an amazing person, a better husband, a better father, a better grandfather. And if you do that, you find you can balance yourself in life. And I then get a chance to read. So I'll read everything from the Tao, which the Taoist sort of thing. I'm up to
Taoism?
Tao.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm up to 53 today, so I do that every day. I also read just normal chats, but I'll read 4 or 5 books. And this morning has been about the Tao, and then I've also got into some Esther Hicks books, which is the Law of Attraction, but just a daily read of it.
Yeah.
And it's also just some daily sayings of what I do. But there's nothing negative there. So I find the time to read. So between 5 and 6, I'm chilling on my own. I'll have a pen and paper handy there on what comes to mind. So sometimes I find that if there's an idea that comes to mind that says, you've got to do this, son, I'll wake up and I know. It's coming from within that says, you've got to do it. And
so this is your morning routine.
Yeah. It's
Angelo's
a ritual.
morning routine
It's a ritual.
starts at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Time to yourself with your meditation. What sort of meditation? Are you just doing breathing exercise? Yeah, breath work.
Breath work.
Have you heard of Wim Hof?
No.
Yeah, okay.
No.
I'll send
Tell
you
me
some
about
stuff. Oh, the Iceman?
No. Oh, yes. Actually, there was an article of him earlier on this week in the Sydney Morning Herald on what he does. Yes, amazing individual. Breath work.
His is all about breath work, giving him the ability to walk to Everest in shorts.
Yeah, in shorts.
And control, breaking all the rules of what people are saying we should be dead, and so he's got all these probes on him, and he's just doing controlled breathing. His most fascinating thing that he produced was he had 9 students and him, and they had 10 students in a hospital. They injected them with a virus, and he said, we can get rid of the virus by breathing. And obviously people say that you can't do that. So they all got injected with the virus. All 10 of the hospital people got the virus, and all of him plus his 9 students dispersed the virus in a 30-minute breathing.
Wow. Well, there is a lot.
And it's all documented, and it's unbelievable because it shows you how powerful the mind is.
Yeah, mindfulness is the latest thing too. So when you look at what does mindfulness do, I think mindfulness starts from the breath work.
Yeah,
in and out, and try and breathe. Count between 1 to 100 or backwards. You'll end up falling asleep if you do. But if you're very mindful on it and watch the next breath.
Yeah.
It actually makes you quite balanced, and I've got to be honest with you, I'm feeling so much, better for it. In fact, I got my bloods yesterday from the family doctor. Said, Angelo, your cholesterol's dropped. What have you done? I said, I dropped gluten, which is good. Especially
like totally,
bread.
or just?
Totally. I actually got back on it a couple of days ago, so I've reintroduced it into my diet. But the energy levels just exploded. Yeah. And I feel so good. Within myself.
Yeah, I give myself 15 minutes as soon as I get in the car every morning. And it's 15-minute breathing to give myself a lot more clarity.
Well, someone like you, who's energetic, you need something like that to rebalance you. And in fact, there's a great new product that I bought one for my wife and my daughter called Muse, M-U-S-E.
Yeah.
Go and check that out. It's actually sort of a headset. You put it on your head and it actually measures your meditation breath. And I've moved away from that because I've got to do it myself. Now you've said it, I'm
going to get bombarded from Instagram.
Yeah, there's an Australian one out now and it's on special because it's $150 off. I'm actually going to buy one for our other daughter. And I find that puts you in a really, really good space because, when you do that and you find your balance, you actually find the time to think.
Yeah, totally. I don't get up at 4. I get up at 6. So, and I usually when I exercise.
Everyone's individual.
Yeah, when I exercise early.
Yeah.
It sets up my day.
Yeah.
In fact, unfortunately, I can't exercise every day. Well, I probably could. But
I do it. I do yoga as well. So I've got my 10-minute yoga session that I'll do on my own, and it's just for stretching. And I find it makes me more capable.
So, did you come into this in a later part I'm not saying later part of your life. In the
wiser part. The wiser time.
Yeah, but so when you were 50 or 40, you wouldn't have thought of doing it. People weren't really talking about it back then. But
I read it.
Yeah.
I didn't believe it until I actually did it. And most of this started to occur when my wife was diagnosed with cancer. It's not the first 7 years, but it's when it came back.
Yeah.
It's when you start to look at the medical system and what it does. Luckily, she chose not to do chemotherapy because when it came back, she wouldn't be alive today.
Well, chemo's quite frightening, and when you actually
it destroys your immune system.
When you actually start to look into why chemo's come about, and the fact that in the States now they don't even diagnose you with a natural remedy; they diagnose you straight for chemo. Maybe that's got to do with some people making lots of money on chemotherapy. I wouldn't want to be a
Well, if we're going to go down that direction, we can be here for another 6 or 7 hours. But look, I think all of this comes from if you have a wonderful immune system, you can cure anything.
Yep.
So the immune system starts from the gut.
Yep.
And if you've got a healthy gut, you'll be fine. It's just like, why do people who don't get the flu have got a good immune system, and everyone around them could get the flu? It's no different.
It's amazing that gut health really does.
Gut health, that's where it starts from.
It really does start.
And I learnt that from my wife, and I didn't believe it. But when I started to do it, I thought, this is fantastic.
Yeah. And even if it's a clarity, it's the way you feel, it's the way that your body feels.
Yeah. Well, laser focus is a bit like going into a store. And you go into one of your new stores, down at Air that I had the chance to see, and you're going...
Yeah.
You can almost smell it, the success that's there. Now, I'm not talking short-term success. It's where are people going to in the future? And you can see it. You can walk into stores and you can see this store is going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
This store is going to be great. This store is going to be great. It's like some of the decisions that we make as a business. And I can walk up to a product and I can say, gee, this looks good. It's a bit like, our team said to us kombucha.
Yep.
But we were going to be the third, to get into that. And I actually walked away from it saying, if we can't be first or create a new category or be really good at what we do, don't bother.
Yeah.
Now, just like I heard from one of your team members here, there's about 67 kombuchas on the market, and all it's going to do is drive down the price, and retailers are going to make less money, the consumers are going to be unhappy, yada, yada, yada. It's not going to be good.
It's a trail we've heard on tomato sauce, olive oil, like you name it, and coconut water, all those sort of products. And let's talk about products. You have an amazing range, which started back in the early day. And Dad, I just found out today that Dad's dad, so this is going back a while,
Drug House of Australia,
was working at Drug House of Australia, which was then bought by Bigfoot, which technically was Bigfoot's.
It owned Bigfoot's.
It owned Bigfoot's.
Yeah, it owned Bigfoot's. I get a bit sometimes confused at the early 60s to mid 60s when Fauldings was part of it, Felton Grimway, Bigfoot were part of it, Drug House of Australia, and then the classic asset strippers, a company called Slater Walker, came in out of the UK and recognised that the price of the property was actually worth more than the shares. And they stripped the company back in those days. So, look, I would have preferred to have Fauldings, which got sold for $1.5 billion a few years ago compared to selling cordials. But who knows what it is. Thank goodness we're here today in that. But, all these companies with history, people don't recognise there's a lot of loyal people out there who just love the actual product. And that's the one thing I recognise.
We don't have it here, but your Bigfoot's lime juice is a heritage listed product.
Yeah, it's icon.
So that's obviously an amazing accomplishment, which you could have got rid of that when did you take over, or did you come into charge of Bigfoot's at around 1999?
Oh, shit, not bad. No, I actually bought it in 1999. I got involved in 1992.
Yeah.
I used to be at Southern Farmers many years ago. Yes. I was a brand manager, for a great little product called Farmers Union Iced Coffee. Oh. And it created a product called Classic Chocolate. I created the strategy for it. Didn't launch it because I got promoted to sales manager of Farmers Union at the time, and I helped create that because I saw the market, and this is where you can smell things. South Australia, Farmers Union Iced Coffee would outsell 600ml Coke. Iconic. And therefore, as a great brand manager, which, I was at the time, I was good. But as a brand manager, you're looking for the opportunities. So, you look at the most universal flavour in the world, it's chocolate.
Yep.
And at that time, I thought, why don't we look at it? And back then, the general manager of the time, a guy called Bob Barker, and I went to my boss, a guy called David Porter, said, we've got all this excess cream, what are you going to do? Because milk, you take it 8% from a dairy cow, you standardise it down to 4%, and what else can you do? And I said, well, chocolate's an indulgence. Well, why don't we make chocolate really indulgent, add more butterfat to it, because iced coffee's got 2% fat. Let's add 5% fat, so it tastes really good. It tastes luxurious. And it took us about a year to get it right. And in fact, when Arnott's used to have a factory on Burbridge Road, up around there, we were almost going to get 2 tanker loads of chocolate, molten chocolate, out of them, because it took me about a year to work out what chocolate recipe there was. And I used to love watching the baseball at night. Yeah. And I would eat TV snacks, and I know you stopped TV snacks. I still buy them on $2 on special.
Jesus.
And so what I would do, instead of biting into the TV snack, I would lick the chocolate off, and I thought, shit, this is good. It's slightly bitter. It's still sweet. Well. And I didn't like the sticks as much as the TV snack, which had the stars. And I licked the chocolate off, and I thought, oh, this is a good one. So I actually rang up Arnott's, and as a young brand manager, the guy said, are you an idiot? I said, oh, I don't think so. And they said, you want me to sell you molten chocolate? I said, yeah. And then I went to my manufacturing boss, and a guy called Morris Henry, and he said, oh, Jesus, Angelo, what the hell are you doing to us? In the end, we got a company to make it into a powdered form, and out came classic chocolate. And the success is there today. And I remember about 2 years ago, being really, really proud within myself when I walked past this bus shelter, and it said, classic chocolate milk still going strong after 25 years. And I thought, that was just an amazing accomplishment, and I still feel really good about that. And any brand that can last the test of time is one that can be truly successful.
So what are the challenges with working with a heritage listed product like your lime juice? I'll go, because that's definitely one that's...
that was an interesting one when Southern Farmers got bought out by Adelaide Steamship, and I was made redundant back in 1991. And some people can be quite disappointed. If it wasn't for me getting made redundant, I wouldn't be where I am today. It's opportunity. What they say is an opportunity is a problem turned inside out. And then at that time, there was the company secretary, a guy called Don Crichton, and a guy called John Spalvins comes in and buys the company. All the senior managers are in the meeting room, and he says, right, I've come here, there's no salary increases for 5 years, there's no more management bonuses, there's no more shares, and whoever doesn't like it, go and see this guy, pick up a check and get out of here. And I sort of thought, ooh, it's a bit interesting. So I went to see Don, and I said, Don, what's the check worth? And he showed me the check, and back then, you could actually cash out your super and only pay 4% tax. That was the tax laws back then. And when I looked at the number, I sort of thought, shit, they've made a mistake here. Because the number was good. And back then, Southern Farmers invested in its own share scheme, and we were given employee shares. And it was showing 40% return per annum. And after 4 or 5 years, it had just grown to a big amount. And I thought, okay, now's the time for me to go out and start my own business.
Yep.
And the check was nice enough to last me at least 12 months.
Wow.
If I do anything, which was really, really good money. And my wife had a good job at the time too. She was working at Bank SA. So I went off to become a marketing consultant. And as a marketing consultant, my old boss called me and he said, I've got a friend of mine who owns a company called Bickford's. And I remember it when I used to work for Nestle. I used to delete it off the shelf. The iced coffee mix would be in the coffee section, and you'd delete it. And I sort of felt, ooh, this is going to be pretty hard. And David said, that was David Porter, my boss, said, go and have a look at it, and I'll introduce you to a man called Guy Lloyd, who owned the company. And I went out to the shelf, and I could see the Schweppes guys had put it on the bottom left-hand corner, lime juice cordial, and the iced coffee mix was on the top right. And it was like in SA, but no one could delete it. No one could ever get rid of it. And I had a look at the numbers, and the numbers weren't good. And I went to Guy, and he said, what do you think of this, Angelo? It's a great business, because he just bought it out of receivership. And at that time, it turned over 1.2 million. It lost 600,000. And I said, he said, what advice do you give me? I said, shut the doors and sell the brand. to Schweppes, because if they get it, they'll pay you for it. And Guy had said at the time, he said, I've never lost at anything in my life. I'm not going to start now. Do you want a job? And I said, well, I will, but if you give me some equity. And he said, well, how about we do a deal? And I said, well, I'm happy to do a deal. And I said, well, okay, I'll get involved if I can buy the family out. And that was in 1992. And we ended up buying the business in 1999. So if it wasn't for Guy and Adele, I wouldn't be where I am now. But, what an amazing experience to pick up a brand with such heritage.
Yeah.
And then walk into some great customers and say, look, I'm going to spend some money with you. And, can you imagine telling a retailer I'm going to spend money with you?
Well,
they're going to open up the shelf. They expand it. Suddenly there's a new source of income and I'm going, shit, I'm a hero here.
Well, we still like hearing those words.
Yeah, I know.
Backing your brand. I mean, let's face it, as a retailer, we want to sell products.
Yeah.
And we even want, we want to be known to be the house of brands. And there's a lot of, you have a value brand or your control brand or your private label. But in the end, the brands are the ones that invest the money. They're the ones that do all the R&D, and they should be the ones that get rewarded. Yeah. And when you look at some of how private labels played out, do you think the brands have actually thought through the problem with having a mega cheap brand with a different label that's almost exactly the same as what they're selling? Do you think they've actually thought this through to what the damage that can do to the category?
Yeah, look, there's always a need for value.
Yep.
There's always a need.
Yep,
and there's always a need for
definitely.
premium. And I remember working at Nestle, we had 3 brands in its categories. We used to have Nescafe Gold, Nescafe and International Roast was the price fighter. Today International Roast is dead. Because they decided to take all the space for Nescafe Gold, but that allowed the opportunity.
Still their price fighter. It still gives them the opportunity to branch out with different flavours, different roasting, and coffee's a bit. Coffee's one of those. Coffee's one of those products that people get fanatical about, and bringing up coffee.
Yeah,
I've heard on the grapevine that your dad was
still roast coffee,
the best coffee roaster around.
Now I've got to tell you a true story. We had your Drake's team come and visit us, just like we have all our customers come and visit our facility. And Dad was there roasting some coffee, and Roger had some, and he said, "Shit, this is good. Can I stock it in my stores?" And I went to Dad and I said, "Dad, I've got a customer who wants to stock your coffee." And he said, "Do you know how old I am?" I said, "Well, you're 86. And he said, "How much do they want?" I said, "I reckon it'll be about a ton a week." And he could see it ticking around in his head. He wasn't good at his numbers, but he's ticking around in his head. He says, "Yeah, right, I reckon I can do it." I said, "Dad, for Christ's sakes, you're 86. Now's your time to retire." He said, "I'm not retiring, son." But luckily I was able to divert him from it. But he still roasts our coffee. Today he still roasts coffee that goes into our iced coffee mix.
How old is he?
He's now 88 now.
Okay.
So he's still doing it. He actually only last weekend he went to our youngest daughter and said, "Christy, I want to train you, and I want you to train your older sister Evie on how to make coffee, because I think I've got to hand over the baton."
Cool
to you. So he just loves coming in. I think this is where you look at somebody. Again, I don't call him old, I call him wise. As long as your brain is working and is active, like he walks every day, your brain's active, you're not sedentary. If you're walking around, doing the garden, roasting coffee, keeping your mind active, you're not going to go sedentary, and you're going to live as long as you want to live. And I think that's one of the beauties of life, in being able to do that.
Well, today's paper, there's 4 people having a birthday for over 100.
Yeah.
So 102, 104, 101 and 100.
Yeah.
And I thought, Adelaide, this could be a blue zone.
A blue zone?
Do you know what the blue zone is?
No, it's not a Liberal Party voter.
There's pockets around the world where people live longer.
Yeah.
And I'll look it up for you. So there's one in Italy.
Which is where?
I'll tell you, just let me, blue zone. So when you look at it, it's where people live longer, and they go and speak to them. They're like, what is it that you're doing? Well, why are you living longer? And they ask them things. So what they're doing is, I just Googled something. So it's about they're enjoying themselves. They're eating. They're not getting pollats, but they're drinking, they're celebrating, they're always continuing to enjoy the group.
I'll tell you what, this time, during these lockdowns and that, I've never had so much wine in my life.
Yep, I'm with you.
And it's drinking our great red wine from Beresford down in McLaren Vale on Blewett Springs Road. It's a fantastic place to go, great venue. And if you want to rent it, it's quite good. Sorry, that was a gratuitous plug.
No,
we make some wonderful wines.
It's okay, we've got wine coming up.
We love our wine.
So you want to hear this? Sardinia in Italy.
Yeah, been there.
Ikara in Greece.
Icarus.
Yeah. Oh, no, Ikara?
Ikara, yeah. There's a wonderful diet book on that.
Okinawa in Japan.
Yeah.
Noya in Costa Rica. And Loma Linda in California. And they've...
Not Yorba Linda. No.
No,
that's a shithole.
It could be L-O... well, maybe it's something about a shithole. But those areas, and they sit there, and they've gone and spoken to groups of people. So this is look it up. You'll like it.
I know the Icarus one. I've got actually one of the diet books from there. It's almost a Mediterranean diet.
So it's almost eating off the land.
Yeah.
Less preservatives. So for me, we obviously have a lot of. It's all about the foods become quick and easy, and that's why we have so many different varieties of food. But there seems to be a slow turning around. Slow, I call it slow, is watching the numbers, watching that it's got no preservatives in it.
Yeah.
Had to be one person. So you try. It's up the top, Dad. No, can't take him anywhere. You cannot take him anywhere. That fucking ringtone.
What's the ringtone?
I've got headphones on. It's as loud.
Okay, I don't hear it.
It's as loud as it gets. Anyway, so the Blue Zone is that. I mean, maybe, just maybe, Adelaide is one of those. It was they've got a lot of stats on it and whatnot. But vegetables. They eat 33% of their diet is vegetables. 27% of the diet is fruit. 10% are dairy. So they 4% meat and poultry.
I'm a little bit higher on meat, but it's got to be grass fed. You read all these, immune system, autoimmune diseases that are in the US with what they feed their cattle. I think it's terrible.
Yeah,
grass-fed, where we live in Australia, where we live in Adelaide, I think, as I keep saying, Adelaide's the greatest place in the world to live and bring up a family, but you compromise your life by travelling. We've been fortunate where, Emirates flying into Adelaide, or Qantas flying out of Adelaide using Emirates, you can leave at 9:40 at night and be in London 12:30 the following day. You're into London CBD 2:30 in the afternoon. You can have a meeting at 5 o'clock, go until 7:30. You're in bed at 8, and then you can start and have a full day of work the next day. So productively, you can't beat Adelaide.
I think it's one of the safest places in the world.
Yeah.
And maybe Tasmania might be a bit safer.
A bit colder.
Yeah, a little bit colder. So we get hot and cold, and I like hot and cold.
Yeah.
You're a very proud South Australian now that you got your grassroots here.
Yeah.
But you still follow St. George football. Is that true?
Well, St. George was my team back then.
Yeah.
There was a wonderful guy who used to drive a truck at the end of the street. It was an old Esso service station, a guy called Graham Langlands, who was my hero. He was number one. He was fullback for St. George. And I lived over the hill from Redfern Oval, which was South Sydney. And, those two teams hated each other. And I didn't know who I liked more. Did I want to be part of the South Sydney Rabbitohs Club? And because I used to go across the street to the Police Boys Club, which is where youths stayed off the street and played cricket, and that's where I met some wonderful people in terms of boxing, called Tony Mundine, who was he actually used to train at the Police Boys Club. Anthony Mundine's father, who was a wonderful boxer in the ring, and I just couldn't get in the ring, even though they wanted me to get in there, because I was really fearing of this big nose getting smacked across my face, and I think it would have hurt me. But to be in that Police Boys Club situation where you were able to compete and grow and be part of a community, I think that's one of the big things, being part of a community.
So is that the same sort of era as Boris? Mark Boris, he was into his boxing, Western Sydney.
Well, this is inner Sydney, which was very Aboriginal.
Yeah.
It was a very, very tough place to be, and you used to get rid of all of the excess energy by playing, rugby league and football, and Redfern Oval, was a really, really, tough place. And But that's the days that, they can call it men were men, and that's where, you take, the footballers back then, you would play with broken shoulders. I remember a guy called, John Sattler, who used to be, one of the big people. Bob McCarthy was there, and you take St George against South. These guys would have their nose right across their cheeks. It was really, really tough going. So you learnt adversity and you learnt resilience. And I never regret that, for 1 second.
So let's talk a bit about some Bigford's products.
Yeah, sure.
What's your favourite? Well, do you? I mean, you got a suite of. I don't know how many products you've got, but there is a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
I'm guessing maybe over 100 currently circulating. Yeah. You would have had thousands of products over the years, and they come in and out.
There's a lot of failed too.
Yeah.
So learn from your failures.
I guess we're only seeing the ones that are leading the way. Yeah. What's? Do you have a favourite?
The favourite one for me, if I have to have, my true favourite is lime juice cordial. Nothing beats that.
A heritage product.
Yeah, nothing beats that one. Although the one that made us famous in terms of supplying the cash for us to grow was a product called Spritz. And it was the first premium soft drink that we launched in 1992. That was the first one.
Was it a Spritz?
No, Spritz.
So similar to that?
Spree was different.
Yeah.
Spree I launched in Asia, but Spritz we launched in Australia. And it was the first one that got into cafes because we could see the rise of cafes. And a cafe society was starting to grow. And we noticed that they didn't want to sell Coke, because Coke was selling for $1.50, whereas you're selling a coffee for $3. Whereas I thought, well, if they're not going to sell Coke or Pepsi, they're going to sell a Spritz that sells for $5. And suddenly, the retailer's making good margin. They're selling a soft drink. Win-win-win. And that supplied us all the impetus for growth. And from that growth money, we invested in salespeople all around Australia. So we employed some great people like Rocco Polomini, Eric Kukowski, and Eric's still with us today after 25 years. He was our first rep on the road, who now runs, total sales for our business. And, that's incredible times.
So product development.
Yeah.
You seem to give your team a free rein on product development. Would that be, or are you a control freak to say, no, this is...
No control. No, it's not about control. It's about, I believe in the principle that none of us is as good as all of us. So the ideas don't generate from my office. The ideas are generated from everyone who's got an idea, and we'll test that idea. So an idea can come from somebody on the factory floor, or an idea can come from a marketer, and there's a lot of ideas that come from consumers. People ring up today and say, I think you should get into this category. And I go, oh, thank you for that. And we'll investigate it and we'll do a lot of work. So, we'll probably look at products that we're going to do probably in the next 3, 4, 5 years of what's going, what are the trends. And we're looking at them very, very actively. And we'll have formulations made, we'll try product, we'll test product, and some of it will stay away for 10 years. Waiting for the right place at the right time. So, for example, CBD, and THC eventually. So, from cannabis plant. I think that's an opportunity for the future. But it's not available yet, but it's some area that we'll look at. We've looked at very closely.
So have you formulated some stuff?
Oh, shit, yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's all legal to do here.
Yeah.
You can do that.
So with that in mind, do we have any rules that you're allowed to buy, because it doesn't have THC
for medicinal purposes.
Yeah.
But CBD you can't use within a beverage at the moment here.
But it doesn't contain
THC. Yeah.
So technically, why can't that be put in a drink? Is it? Can you buy it like on the net? I know you can buy it in the States.
You can buy it actually here.
Yeah.
You can actually get it prescribed.
Okay.
Here, people use CBD for inflammation purposes.
Yeah.
And you can't use a THC. THC has to be prescribed.
Yeah.
And a THC has got that hallucinatory effect. Well, whereas CBD is used for anti-inflammatory.
Maybe.
Well, it depends on the strength.
Else with it.
Again, this is where you've got to employ a lot of smart people. And I look at us being here in Australia clean and green. We've got an opportunity to be world leaders in this area. And I think that's part of the future. Get a lot of smart young people together and put them together in a room with a lot of other smart people and have a lot of difference of opinion, but then everyone knows what the objective is. The objective is to make our business stronger and make it based on brands.
Oh, just so love that philosophy. So we're close. We're not close to wrapping up yet, but we're close to midday.
Nice time, 11:11.
Yeah.
That says a lot. Powerful number, 11:11.
I see it all the time. Dad's birthdays, 11th
There
to
you
the
go.
11th. Yeah, it's
You choose the time you're born, you know that.
Yeah, well, he must have because that's.
You do.
Do you?
You chose your dad.
Yeah.
Wow, this is getting heavy.
This is going very heavy.
Wait till you get heavy.
Before we get into that, there is a product that you have produced, and people are hearing this. They probably can't see it. It's a violet gin.
That's exploded in the last 2 weeks. We haven't launched it.
So if you're wondering how we got our hands on this,
is it through? Yes. So,
can someone open me this?
isn't this interesting? You know, I noticed how successful this would be when internally with all of our staff, they've had the first opportunity to buy it, and nationally, we sold out our first run without even launching it to a consumer when we sold it to staff. And it is an amazing product. So, pour it in a glass. We're using finger limes.
Yeah, and you've got. Have you got a glass? Where's Angela's glass?
Shit, 11:11.
That's right. So we've got some ice here. So I'm gonna give you your ice.
Yeah, thank you.
So does it have to be gin or can it be a flavoured, or you reckon go just straight?
If I was you, I would go.
So one thing, can you see this? Because apparently something happens here. Yeah?
Yeah, pour it in.
Does something happen here?
Yeah, pour it in. Just pour the gin in, but it's when you pour the tonic in.
All right. So we pour the gin.
Keep going.
Oh,
keep going.
shit.
Keep going.
Sorry.
Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
Go on,
So look at the colour of this.
Well, stop. Okay.
Oh.
Put that down.
Oh, anyway, I'll do it on this
Pour
side.
some for yourself.
Yeah. So can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep going. That's it. Nice.
Okay.
All right.
Look at that. Hang on. Wait. And
Your turn.
so now.
Pour in some beautiful
Got cold.
tonic water.
Yep.
Why tonic water? And don't forget, with our Dickford's tonic water, we actually use real cinchona. And a cinchona comes from the bark of a tree.
So
We don't use artificial
Where can you
flavours
see
like
that?
our competitors do.
So
Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
how cool is that?
And that's the butterfly pea.
That is so good. Can I Insta that?
You can Insta that. What does Insta that mean?
Instagram. This is going to post
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Social
Well,
media.
that's why you wouldn't have been able to find out much stuff on me. I've got no Facebook
Yeah, I know,
account,
mate.
no Instagram
But-
account,
Yeah,
no LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It took me 2 years to get off LinkedIn.
Oh,
Ended
yes.
up sending a
Yeah.
legal letter. Thank
That is so. If you want to talk about cool stuff, I got to ask who come up, and I can't wait to taste it. So, who come up with this? Who came up with this idea?
you. Again, it's the smart young people we've got. We've got some really, really clever young brand managers. The brand manager who's in charge of this is Gabrielle. And we've got Kitty who looks
amazing.
after wine, and Simon Bibb who looks after beer, Beverly, Amelia, Amanda, Chris. Get some smart young people together.
Look at, and it's even got purpler. Might not be
It's
a word, but
exceptional.
everyone understands what I'm trying to say.
I love it. It's a great product. And who to believe that came out of Renmark, downtown Renmark, which used to
you
be
could
an
almost
absolute
say
shithole.
Outback Australia.
Well, almost, but I don't know if you've had a chance to go to the distillery there, but
I
it
know.
was-
I haven't been to Renmark.
Well,
I haven't
wait,
been to Renmark.
You've got to go to Renmark, and it was interesting.
Yeah, I haven't been to your distillery. Hang on. That's the
23rd
police.
Street.
Is that the police station?
Mm.
No.
No, the police station's in Kangaroo Island.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we'll eventually do something there. But in Renmark, we were negotiating to build a new distillery in Renmark for our black bottle brandy business. And I took my wife and daughter down to Barmera, a beautiful little site where we were going to do a deal. And then we went back to Renmark to have a look at this, pardon me for saying shithole that was there. And it hadn't been used for 30 years. And my wife gave me that look. Sometimes when you get that look from your wife, which says, you're going to choose to do Renmark, not this other place, which is Greenfields. You're going to build a beautiful, brand new, modern factory. You're going to build it in Renmark because I was born in Renmark. And I think at that moment I said, you know what, I'm building it in Renmark.
Of course. Of course.
And I got to be honest with you, every time we go down there, and we're off to there next Tuesday, it is just an amazing facility that we've got there. It's, it's got this most beautiful wall, on the inside. We decided to keep the wall. People don't think we're, into heritage much, but, when you say, look at the Bickford's brand, well, there's this wonderful wall in this distillery that still shows distillery 1914 there. And we could have bulldozed it. We chose to keep it, and it's the centrepiece of this distillery there. And we just upgraded it, and it looks fantastic. It's a brilliant facility.
I'm excited to go see that now.
Yeah.
I actually haven't
Great
seen
tourism.
it. So obviously you do some cordials, which you vaguely mentioned.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other things that you've branched out to now.
Yeah.
Obviously gin, vodka.
Yeah, we've got Australia's first distillery licence up in Beenleigh in Queensland.
Beenleigh in Queensland, which, for
Great
anyone
place.
that knows, Beenleigh, it's producing product that you actually sent down. So how long ago did you get into
Liquor?
Like producing your own liquor?
Got involved in liquor in 2002. We had a relationship with Diageo, who's the biggest spirit company in the world, where we took some of their brands and we bought some of their brands like Voc Liqueurs. And we bought that. We bought, Frigate Rum and a couple of others. And we had a relationship with them that we put on our own sales team. And we took their business from doing 20,000 cases a year to 1.5 million.
So is that because of distribution?
Distribution.
Yeah.
I believe the principal distribution builds brands. And then, focus. And no different to what you guys do. If you focus on what you do, do it brilliantly well. And if you take your eye off the core, make sure you put a totally separate team on. So we've got a separate business called Voc Beverages. That's our alcohol business.
Yep.
And that one there is, we've grown that from, a small little business to being a top 10 spirits distributor and manufacturer in Australia. That we're proud to export all around the world.
If they are looking to sponsor a race car driver, I notice they do sponsor some races, putting it out there. Voc, JP Drake's your person.
Right. Yes, I'd have a bit of an issue with me on that. I could put Bearded Lady Bourbon on it, but it wouldn't be a...
No, I'd like that. I'd even wrap the car with a bearded lady. Is there such a thing?
Yes, there is actually. And it's surprising. I've got to tell you a true story on this. In its early heyday with Bearded Lady, this is when Charlie Sheen was really, really big.
Yeah.
And one of our team members, and a guy called Chris Illman, who's our marketing manager, had this fantastic idea that said, now let's build this Bearded Lady business to be huge, and why don't we offer a weekend with Charlie Sheen as a promo deal?
Are you kidding me?
No, that's what the promo deal was going to be. But then we contacted his management team, and they wanted $750,000 for a weekend, and I said, look, I just can't justify this to myself. I just can't do it. So, typical Angelo, I thought, well, let's give it a go, and we offered $250,000, which was huge. It was a huge amount of money, but the response we would have had would have just made this brand a huge bourbon brand. They came back and said it's $750 or nothing, and I just said it's nothing, and I walked away. From that deal. But, it's amazing how people will take your phone call if they're prepared to do a deal, but it's a great brand.
Correct, totally correct, isn't it?
Yeah, that brand we've got.
I was hoping I would see a bearded lady when I looked it up.
No,
I know.
No, there wasn't. There was actually a Bearded Lady a show at the Fringe one time. That we did sponsor, but this is a brand that to be noticed and to make an impression in a category, you have to be different. So when you got brands like Jim Beam, Jack Daniels, you have to be different, and we did that by creating a brand called Bearded Lady, which is still doing very well today.
It's awesome. I guess I was lucky enough to see the Jim Beam factories and what they've created over there in Kentucky, and it's actually mind blowing. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Maker's Mark and...
Well, I actually went there. It's in the early days we were doing business with Diageo on a brand of theirs called Bullet Bourbon.
Yeah.
And I went to a place called Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. And in fact, I got into the wrong Lawrenceburg. It was supposed to be Lawrenceburg, Indiana. And I was in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. And at that time I went to see the Wild Turkey people. I met the Four Roses people who make a wonderful bourbon. The Jim Beam one was a little bit further out. And then I realised, the one that we ended up getting our product made, it's in Indiana. And the way they do it is just amazing. Where why you call it bourbon. Bourbon's got to be made from minimum 51% corn in brand new charred oak barrels.
Yeah,
and that's why it's got to be called bourbon. It's got to be made in the US, and we've got that. We've got about 2,000 barrels sitting there.
Have you? It's
in
like
the US.
it's. I didn't realise that bourbon has the same precinct as like champagne. Can only come from
the US. It's got to be minimum 51% corn.
Yeah, and champagne is a
From
real
the Champagne district.
Yeah. I never knew that.
I know.
Typical American to create something very clever.
It has.
Yeah.
It has. Bourbon is just a wonderful product where again it's got to be 51% corn, and that's why for us gin has been significant, and one of our future areas of growth is going to be what can we do with some indigenous type Australian products. And where's the future?
Or whatever. There's a heap of native.
Yeah, there's a lot. We're in
products.
talks with Jock Zonfrillo and his family what we can do with indigenous products, because I want to export Australian products to the world. I want to create jobs here for Australians. I want to create jobs for my grandkids in the future, and the best way of doing that is create brands that people can only buy the raw ingredients from here. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, okay. So do you think that you're competing on manufacturing with a product? Do you think with what's happened with COVID, it's I'm not one of these people who say you got to cut off China because that's unrealistic. But do you think we, with our labour cost in this country, are able to compete on a world scale to mass produce products all around the world?
That's interesting. You say that. Straight after this, I'm going back to the office and having a chat with some people in the federal government, through the Prime Minister's committee, and a guy called Ned Power who's running it. I believe Australia can be competitive. I believe we have got a lot of talent here.
Yep.
But the one thing that's happened to me that I recognise with COVID is some of the key supply challenges that we had, we actually gave in, and we gave a lot of intellectual property overseas. I believe we've got to build a sovereign wealth facility here. We've got to create areas for what we can do in the future. And when we looked at, we talked sanitize and what we did in a very short space of time.
22 days.
Yeah, 22
idea
days. Yeah.
To
launch.
To launch.
Yeah.
And that's the sanitizer for the COVID. If anyone hasn't seen it, we've done stories on it if you want to check out any of our material. But
the biggest issue that we've had with that is the supply chain to get pumps and sprays. The world gets it out of China and Thailand. And one of the chats I want to have with the government is we've got to have some form of ability to make them here. Now, I've heard the negatives of this, which is you'll get the likes of Procter & Gamble, Unilever, all these big companies, Reckitt Benckiser, who will arrange for billions of these products to be made, and it's made in China or Thailand, and Australia can't compete. Whenever I hear that, whenever I hear somebody say Australia can't compete, I've got to say we've got enough smart people here. That let's get some smart designers, let's get some smart engineers, let's get some smart robotics people, and let's create a new paradigm. And that new paradigm's got to start from what I believe government should always do. Government should always create an infrastructure. And it should say, we're going to give you a grant, or we're going to give you an opportunity to create a brand new business here that can compete against anyone in the world. But we need to think differently. And I think this is the key for me. You have to think differently. And I will put up any Australian against anyone in the world in terms of smart. So if we can't do it, we shouldn't be doing it. But I think we've got the capacity here to do so. We've got the smart people to do it. And you look at the people at Lot 14, look at the people at the University of SA, look at the people at the University of Adelaide. We've got a lot of smart people here. So get designers, get the engineers. We should be making it here. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to create a business for that. That's what I'm going to tell them. But I'm going to say to them, I need your backing to create jobs here. And in fact, I'm going to tell them today, if you want to do something, back me up in Renmark so we can create jobs in the regions to make sure when people come here, we get back to something that Australian is good at. When we emigrated to Australia, Dad said we're going to Australia because Australia makes things.
Yeah.
Right? We had the Prime Minister come and open up our new facility in October last year. And he said it, and I said it in my speech. I know Australia is good at making things. Right? Let's keep on making things. Let's use some smart people to do so. And now's the opportunity to say, you know what, we're never going to see this happen again. Because one of the things that happened to us, and we looked at, the gel in the sanitizer. The key ingredient for making a gel comes out of Europe, and the EU said we are not exporting this to the rest of the world. and you're going, this should not be happening. We should never allow this to happen again in the future. And pardon my passion for it. My passion is there to say we should never be beholden to any country in the world for anything for that. And if we want to allow our manufacturing to go, back your own people here, and we've got a lot of smart people in doing what they do.
You've said it amazing.
Well, let me get into even retailers. Let me even get into retailers. I've said it so often. We've got some of the best retailers in the world. Not to say Woolworths are great. Coles are great. I've seen what you guys are doing. I've seen the Romeos, the Chapleys. We've got fantastic retailers that can compete against the best in the world. And I've said it many times, we've got the best convenience retailer in the world, here in Adelaide, in On the Run.
Yep.
Yet what happens when I see some small businesses start up, and no different to where we were at, who say, I want to export to Sydney, Melbourne, Queensland. Get your business right here in Adelaide. Build a foundation and grow from here. I've never heard any story that anyone who hasn't walked into a Drake's, a Romeo's or a Chapley's, and they've said no. Right? How many people haven't even walked in?
Yeah.
Now, once you create your base here, you're going to be fine. And I truly believe that this place in Adelaide is the most homogenous place in the world, that if you can be successful here, you can be successful anywhere in the world. And I said, it's 1.2 million people. You can build a great business here. Great business.
And it's here.
It's
in
here.
South Australia. And it feels, and I don't know what your thoughts on it, but right now in Adelaide feels like things seem to be turning around for us as an excitable city to live in.
Yeah.
And, we obviously got the Lot 14, which is great for, hopefully a lot of tech, but a lot more than tech is going to be there. We've got the Security Cyber Centre. We've got the Space Centre, which has been approved, which technically means we're going to be sending up rockets right here in the Yorke Peninsula, which, if you had said that 10 years ago, there's no way you would have thought that we'd be sending rockets and have the ability, to send rockets into space, to obviously payloads or even take passengers. It still looks like this is going to happen. We got they got the Defence Force, all that stuff happening down at the port. It is very exciting. It's amazing how we feel that Adelaide's still quite understated, though.
Well, look, it's no different to, if I give you the example of Kangaroo Island, there's people who want growth and there's people who don't. People who want Adelaide to stay the same, people who want growth. Yeah. There's always, this amazing balance. One of the things that, in talking to friends of mine in the US who I've got to know for a long, long period of time, they read the stories about Adelaide and they say, COVID's under control here. A lot of them are saying, if I was to emigrate anywhere, I'd emigrate to Adelaide. And I go, where has that come from? It's come from a part of themselves that's saying the government's done the right thing, the medical system's done the right thing, it's a good place to be. We would seriously look at it and you're going, wow, it's taken us to not have faith in ourselves, to have others tell us how good we are.
Yeah.
This is a great place to be. I love it. And look, if I'm meant to be feeling bad about myself, if I want to go to the UK for 3 days, I can do it out of Adelaide. Whereas normally I used to do it out of Sydney or Melbourne. It'd take me 5 or 6 days. I hate being away from my family. And if you can do it in 3, as I say, Adelaide's the greatest place in the world to live and bring up a family, but you compromise your life. But there's nothing wrong with that. To come back on a weekend to go for a walk past the Adelaide Oval and to not see any football at the moment, which to me is fantastic. To walk past the River Torrens is just gorgeous. For me, I've got this outlook on the wonderful cathedral there. It's to go and have a really nice cup of coffee with people, to not be recognised. Sometimes that's a good thing. That's why I rarely do this sort of stuff, because I don't want to be recognised. I'm just an ordinary person who just wants to get on with things and create a legacy. And my legacy is to actually say, I want to create jobs for my grandkids. I want to create jobs for my family. I want to create jobs for South Australians. And here's the one thing that I truly believe in. When somebody says governments create jobs, pardon me for saying that's bullshit. Governments don't create jobs. Jobs are created by people who actually take the opportunity to take a risk in life. Right? They take a risk in life. Governments never create any jobs. They should create the environment for jobs. And I've got to be honest with you, I'm looking at it federally and I'm thinking Australia now has got its chance to actually put itself in a position where we can be global leaders in everything that we do. And I think that's a great thing.
It's great, and the outlook of that is amazing for us too. So it is super exciting. Moving forward,
Shit, we've gone quite a few circles, haven't we?
Yeah, no, it's. I love just talking about just anything that comes about. So, in the industry or in your life, have there been any people you've mentioned a lot along the way here? Has there been people, whether you know them or whether you've read about them or whatnot, where you've looked up to and thought, that's the sort of my values are congruent with them? Is there? Do you have any business mentors or life mentors that you can think of?
Oh, look, outside of family.
You've mentioned about 20. Outside of family.
Because family to me is where it starts and stops. No, it starts and stops with family. And for my wife, Mary, I'm blessed to have married her. She came into my life where, here it was, a young bon vivant, as they call it.
Bon vivant?
Bon vivant. It's this guy who was so shit hot of himself. He loved himself. I could almost look at myself in the mirror and I'd say, gosh, you look good. Yeah, that was back in 1981. I just turned 21 and I thought my shit didn't stink. And this lady walked into my life, and the minute I saw her, I said, I'm going to marry you. And I did. And I've been blessed to be part of her. And then to have two amazing daughters in Evie and Christy, and who have been absolute gods, to me. And our granddaughter Angelica came into our life. And now our youngest, Bella. I've got to tell you a true story. Evie, our eldest daughter, sent us a note through yesterday, and Bella's in early learning.
How old's your eldest?
Our oldest daughter, she's 35.
Okay.
And Evie's youngest daughter, Bella, was in early learning, and she's learning to tell the time. And the teacher asked her, and we own a bar in Melbourne Street, and her teacher said to her, what does 5 o'clock mean, Bella? And Bella said, that's the time the bar opens. As a 5-year-old, and I thought, isn't that great? As a grandparent, there's nothing more that you want to see. I wanted to see the look on the teacher's face. But when you take outside of family, to me, because I've become a lot more, call it, I don't want to call it spiritual, but a lot more open with who I like. I get to find people actually walk into my life who are there to teach me things. If I take wonderful people like, Morris Crotty, who set up what was called, Food SA, and really started off the food business, over a long period of time. You heard me talk about, my original boss, David Porter at Farmers Union, who rejected me on the first time of a job, but employed me at least the second time, and that's what I call persistence. There's a lot of people that come into my life. In fact, sometimes I find that if I want to talk to somebody, I'll actually pick up the phone and call them.
Yeah.
I found that dealing with government the first time round, I remember ringing, even back then it was Kevin Foley, because normally you have to go through all these consultants.
Yeah.
I said, no, I don't want to talk to a consultant. Let me talk to these people direct. That's what I do now. And, I say, look, I want to talk to you because don't want to talk to you to say hello. I want to talk to you because I want to talk to you about something. And that's what I've found in dealing with people in government. If I've got something to say, I'll say it to them, be it right or wrong. I've got an opinion.
Yeah.
And as a person who has an investment in this state, I want to make sure people do listen to it. So I may not agree with them. Like I found Kevin was an interesting, character. I found, Jay Weatherall, very, very different. Tom Coots, who was a unique individual. Even, Leon Bignall at the moment, talking even with, Stephen Marshall and that. It's amazing what this guy's done in a very short space of time during COVID. He's been a very, very good leader. And if you take the same with our Prime Minister, he's done a great job.
Yeah, I think so. I was actually going to ask you, you've kind of answered already, but what do you think the SA has done well over the COVID situation? So in COVID, how do you, because you kind of answered
it closed the borders to say, we want to eradicate this. And look, this is what I don't agree with the medical system. I don't believe a vaccine will work.
Yeah. Well,
this is
people
me
are talking
personally.
about it, I'll be ready in a couple of months. Well, it won't. And why the misinformation? Oh, anyway, that's another story.
Well, no, it's not I did really well in biology in school, and that doesn't make me a PhD or anything like that. But I do recall one thing, viruses mutate.
Yep.
And as viruses mutate, there can be no vaccine. You know,
Totally.
it's just like, there will not be a vaccine, for this, and the best thing you can have is a wonderful immune system and create a right environment for it. And it's like, well, if you haven't created a vaccine for the common flu, where more people die of the common flu every day, influenza A and, B strands, more people die of that than have died of COVID. So why don't you create one that fixes the flu if you think, let alone you're going to create something for COVID. South Australia's done well where it's actually got on top of things very, very quickly.
Amazing.
So it's done some pretty good things. Now, we've suffered as a business with that, and we've got all of our tourism ventures that have suffered, but we redeployed all of those people at that same time. So it's done well in managing that. It's actually how we get out, and then what happens when the borders open. You're going to have these detractors who are going to say the minute somebody gets something, that we should close it again. You've got to open yourself up to the world. You can't wrap yourself, just like you can't wrap your kids up in cotton wool. I still recall reading quite a few books that the best thing to do with kids is let them go and run around in the grass, in the mud. Let them get dirty and let them build their own immunity, as compared to leaving them at home. I think is the worst thing that one can do. It's no different to one getting the flu. Kids with chicken pox, they used to have chicken pox parties, so kids will get the chicken pox that once you get it as a kid, you're not going to get it as an adult. I got chicken pox in year 12 exams, and it's like you go, shit, it was tough gig.
Chicken pox party?
Yeah, chicken pox party. And they used to have chicken pox parties in the early 70s and 80s where they'd put them together so they would get the chicken pox. Because as an adult, when I had chicken pox in year 12, shit, it was really, really terrible. Right in the middle of exams, and I was almost put together in a side room, and the teacher said to me, you don't have to do these exams, and you can leave it till February. And I said, there is no way I'm not going to do this.
I'm waiting. All my mates.
And luckily I graduated. But
it's unusual. I've never been sick. Never had measles, mumps, chicken pox. I get the occasional sore throat. And I think half of it's in my mind.
Yeah.
I don't know if Dad never gets sick, or if he does, it's a sore throat or something. And I'm like, people say, it's going to be a problem. I was like, I won't get it, COVID-19. I'm not going to get it. I won't put my hands in my mouth for COVID, because that's when I learned about hand hygiene. I just sit there and I think, people keep on saying it's going to be bad for you. Chicken pox party has blown me away. I never knew that existed.
So check it out.
What do you think? It's something we could... so forget about COVID. It's South Australia. What is something South Australia can do? And we're doing a lot of things, which is really amazing. But what do you think there's something South Australia should be doing better?
Wow. Any particular area?
You can have whatever area you want, because bear in mind, you're in retail, you're in manufacturing, you're in liquor, you're everywhere. Yeah. But as a global looking at, because you're like me, we're very proudly South Australian. I'm happy. I've lived in Queensland for 10 years. Coming back home was the best thing ever. Yeah, Queensland's great. Yep, Sydney's great to visit, but coming home and seeing what we have to offer here, our food, our coffee, our wine, our alcohol, pretty much covers every base of the necessities of life, is here. And it's a safe environment. We have had an increase in homeless, but everywhere has, but South Australia is one of those places that has everything here, but people just don't understand it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's what's doing better, but for me, I want more people. And we've recruited with the process at the warehouse, with the process of the new category guys. We've had people come over from Sydney, and they come over and they're like, shit, it's really good here. It's like, yeah, we know. And there's a group of people that want to keep that quiet, but the reality is we've got such big area here. We
population growth is certainly something that we need to. We need to expand more on, certainly population for getting the right people in here. The right people meaning always bring new skills, that you can grow. We'll keep investing here because we think it's a great place for doing business. The entrepreneurialism of young people here is just fantastic. I just see from our customers and our consumers, where we go to. What can we be doing better? Look, we're doing pretty well. I think sometimes if you can do something better, you're trying to find somebody who's doing things better than you. You know,
Yep.
they're not. Except sometimes what we do really well. And it's like, I don't buy the newspaper, you know, deliberately to stay away from negative news. But, you know, when I heard yesterday that South Australia is bashing itself because there was one person who came in, you know, with COVID and, you know, it's a disaster for the state, you're going, well, the person's in isolation, they're in quarantine, you know, people can make mistakes, so don't bash yourself. You know, we can be really, really hard on ourselves here. You know, we sometimes like to think that, you know, we're less than. We're not less than. And I never think that at all. I'll put any of my team up against the best in the world, and we have. Not only have we beaten them, but they've grown from it. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's people like me and a lot of other people who are going to invest in young talent here that keeps them here. Now, we're finding we're getting a lot of people coming from interstate and overseas to live here.
Yeah,
when they've heard about it.
That's what we're
And it's a
finding.
great thing. You know, what I don't want to see happen is our young kids have to leave to come back. You know, I don't want to see that. You know, I want to see my grandkids on the weekend. I want to see my kids on the weekend.
I'll be horrified if my girls are pretty young right now, but
yeah, how young are they?
5 and 6. I would be horrified if they move away.
They may need to do that.
Oh my God! Yeah, I know.
You don't want that to happen.
No, I don't want that to happen, and I want them to do whatever makes them happy.
That's at the end of the day, joy is what life's about.
So to me, it is. You know, you talk about things that you look at, what makes you work, and I keep saying to everyone, whether it's a cashier or whatnot, we understand it might be a means to an end.
Yeah.
You know, half of the accountants here have come from the shop floor.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't have thought working as a cashier, going to uni, getting your degree, and then now that, you know, we've got, I don't know, 7 accountants up here, and I think all bar one of them's come from the shop floor.
Yeah.
So
it's not where you start, it's where you finish.
That's a great saying. But for me, I just keep saying to people, just do something that makes you happy.
Yeah.
Like, because if you're happy, you don't feel like you're. I actually don't feel like I'm working. And Dad like goes, yeah, you realise we sell groceries? I said, yeah, this is all selling groceries, Dad. Like it for me, it's about the happiness, and a lot of people, unfortunately, never figure that out.
Yeah, but they create that for themselves.
I 100% agree with you, and but there's a whole nother podcast with you, Angelo, where we can talk about some stuff that's a little bit more enlightening and spiritual, because
I'll introduce you to some wonderful resources that we've got. You know, when we were in the US, you know, true story. You know, we left here on the 1st of March, you know, of this year, and I took 14 of our team members to the US. You know, there's 8 of our exec members, and we took, you know, some of our young stars, you know, with us to go and see the market. We were presenting our goods at a product called Natural Products in Anaheim, and we had a stand there, and we were going to take Bickfords to the US. So 14 people there. We arrived on Sunday, the 1st of March, and the trade show was on Thursday, the 5th of March. On the 3rd of March, they cancelled the trade show. And so
shit, this is
what
just
do you
recent.
do? Yeah, that's
COVID.
how sanitizer
COVID
came up 2 days before then. And our ideas. So instead of saying the world's shit, the world's going to win, it's a disaster, you know, we actually sat down and did our F21 plans. We said, what are we going to do in the future? You know, we took a negative, we made it into a positive. You know, so within that time, from the 1st of March, you know, by the time we landed back in Adelaide on the 10th, you know, sanitizer was ready to go in terms of the thinking of everyone. Everyone was set up for F21. So you could take a negative and make it into a positive. So you got 14 people that significant expense. We didn't take the negative. We took the positive out of it. And you get smart people in a room when they've got their backs up against the wall. You know, heard the old saying of the rat against the cat. When the rat's, you know, in that corner and he's got to fight against the cat, he's going to fight for life and death. And we're there as a group of 14 of us, and we said, what's the future of Bickfords? That would not have happened if you didn't get the 14 smartest people in our business sitting there going, we have an opportunity to create our future. And I'll tell you what, some of the products coming out in the next few years that we've got, it set a wonderful path to us. So we've taken a negative, made it into a positive, and guess what? Everyone loved it coming out of there. And we had some amazing resources, you know, that we brought in. And we had some wonderful people, you know, a wonderful lady called Lisa Williams, you know, who's an intuitive, you know, one of the best in the world. You've seen the one lady who puts her hat on her head and, you know, talks to people. And we had her as a resource.
Like a medium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was our resource that we had on how to improve your intuition.
Really?
Yeah. And she was one of our resources, and she was excellent. We had a psychic detective, which had...
so you're quite spiritual, I'm assuming?
Oh, yeah. And I believe that you never die.
Have you always been?
It came up. It's a bit like
Something
cream.
happened.
Yeah, the cream rises to the top. And we had these two resources and they were brilliant. So all of us got to do our own vision boards. So we had one resource in who assisted us with our vision boards as a business, our personal vision boards, because I said that to everybody, I'm bringing intuitives in and people to expand our intuition for you. It's not for me. My benefit is going to be when you can be a better person at home.
Totally.
You can be a better husband, better wife, better partner, and you come into work happy, I'm going to get the benefit of all of that. And as a management group, we've come out of it very, very strong. And the team members who will come out of it, I'm so thrilled to be classed as, their leader, which is an absolute joy because that means I don't have to go into work. I don't start my day until 10, and sometimes I'm gone by about 4, and let them run it because they're part of the future.
Such a good outlook, and wow, it probably explains why you're different than the others.
Well, different, yeah.
I'll say different.
Different.
So let's cast your mind. If you weren't doing what you're doing right now, and you could do anything in the world, like could be a professional soccer player, you could. Be coaching, like, I don't know, you could be a school teacher, you could be whatever you wanted. Like, no holds barred. What would you be doing?
The job I'm doing now, it's the best job in the world. I can wake up in the morning and I feel joy and happiness. When you walk into the door and you can check with anyone at work, then I'll say hello to everyone. Because I believe I'm that little light switch. If that light switch is off and I'm in a shit mood, everyone's going to feel it. And I come in and I switch that light on and I say hello to everybody, I've got to be in that mood. I have got the best job in the world.
Yeah.
I love going into work every day. I love being a part of helping people change their lives. I love being part of what I call creating the future, not only for myself. And if people can see me as an inspiration, I think that's great. I love our daughters to think that I inspire them, my wife to inspire her, and everyone I work with. Everyone knows at Salisbury who works on the production line, there's nothing I haven't done on that line that they're doing now. So they know that I can do it and I'm part of it. So I've done every single part of it. I don't have a fear of hard work, but sometimes it's not just hard work that does it, it's everything else that goes with it. So I'm happy. I'm happy.
Oh, such a good answer there. If there's something now, like if there's something that you've learnt, I'd say in your wiser years, that you wish you could give advice to people just starting up.
Yeah.
Like, I'm saying just at school or right at the end of school trying to figure out what they want to do. If there's some advice that you could give them, what advice do you think you could give someone that's just starting up in let's say we'll call it in retailing? They might be thinking, I want to do a new product, I want to do this, I want to open up my own supermarket, or what worldly advice could you give someone?
What they think of me, I can do nothing about. I truly believe every answer comes from within you. You need to find that space that allows you to practice, as they call it, the power of now. The power of now is just about being in the moment and being happy with who you are. And I do believe in synchronicities. And I do believe that you meet everybody you come into life with to learn a lesson. And your greatest lessons come from your most difficult times. Learn from them. Because if you don't, the lessons keep coming back and back in a stronger intensity until you get it.
Yeah.
Right? Your easy ones, they go. But have you noticed your most difficult times, as soon as you've dealt with it, you've moved on, it's gone.
Yeah.
And so don't worry about the future. The future will take care of itself. Worry about being the best person you can be now. Don't be afraid of taking a no. I remember during year 12, I decided to do some market research, and I called on 96 homes. And I was doing some research, and nobody wanted to give me research in 96 homes. And I ended up ringing my boss. I had to go to a telephone box and ring in. And I said, listen, I think I failed. And because I've called on 96 people, and they said, get to 100. And would you believe the next 4? Totally succeeded. The next 4. So I thought it was a failure at 96, but then he said, right off the pass, your next 4, they're 100% success. So it's not how many times you do it, it's do something with joy. Happiness is what it's all about.
It comes across him.
Everything.
You can tell.
Yeah.
It's, when people talk about charisma,
Passion.
I think those things combined is energy.
Yeah.
And people feel it, and they don't know why.
Yeah.
It's like when certain people walk into a room, people know whether they know.
Haven't you walked into a room where two people have had an argument? You go, what the hell was that? You can tell. You can tell when there's some negativity there. You can tell when there's been, pardon me for saying it's a shitstorm going.
Yeah.
Thinking, what the heck? You can tell.
Oh, totally.
That's what it is.
Some people can't.
Well, that's their lesson to learn,
Yeah.
Look, don't, the other great thing is don't judge anyone.
Yeah.
The hardest person that we find that we judge is ourselves.
Yep.
And I always believe that, only ever believe 5% of your own negativity and just let the rest go. And, there's that 5-minute rule that says you can be angry for 5 minutes, but that's it, let it go. And accept what is and just get on with life. Because, if you're angry, and look, there's not many times now that I'm angry.
Yeah.
But then I've got the rule that says, for 5 minutes, you can curse, go outside, have a chat, and then it's gone. Move on.
Yeah, I'm really good at moving on.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that comes across as, oh, you're not passionate enough if you don't fire up. Now, being younger, people look at you, oh, fuck, it's not firing up. It's like, no, I've already processed.
People don't see positive passion. Passion to me, it comes from within you saying, I'm not trying to prove that you're wrong. I'm just trying to make a point that I feel good about. Now, whether you disagree with me, that's fine. And I used to get to the point where if somebody disagreed with me, I'd cut them off. Nowadays it's saying everyone's got a point of view. Yep. Just accept it. Now, you're not trying to prove them wrong and they're not trying to prove you wrong. They have a point of view and let them go with that.
Yeah.
And therefore you get the greatest thing that you start to let go in life is judgment. And the big one that I keep learning is whatever somebody thinks of you, you can do nothing about. So let it go. You cannot change anyone's mind. The only mind you can change is your own.
It's a modern day version of don't get upset about the comments on social media, because like dad was getting upset about a couple of comments and I'm like, Dad, like you cannot please everyone. So don't bother trying.
Look at an election. You only need 50.1% of the population.
Yeah, correct.
The other 49.9 can totally disagree with you.
Yeah.
But you win an election at 50.1. If you want to buy a business, you get control at 50.1. Whatever the others think, don't worry about it. Let it go.
Yeah, and that's valuable.
Yeah.
If there was one thing that you could do that you're not doing that could impact the world, what would it be?
Actually, that's an interesting one. I put it on my vision board on that day that I did. I want to find a product that will cure most people's illnesses. But then I recognise
that's one of the most insightful.
But I can't do that because everyone's here on their own journey. And everyone's here is on their own journey. What would that product be?
It'd have to be an all-in-one.
I don't know. I put it down as something important for me to try and find. I truly believe, the Aboriginal culture here in Australia has got the answers. I believe a culture that's been around for 50,000 years can move around the land and can cure all of their ills. And you're talking about, eating all their indigenous foods.
Yep.
There is something there that I want to make sure I can tap into because I'm sure there's something there. Let's not forget, 50,000 years this culture has been going here in this country and we've destroyed them in less than 300 years. So I don't think we've done the right thing by them, but I think they've got a lot of the cures of what we have. You look at the native Indians, in America, who never owned a piece of land. Yet they could move around and allow the culture, to progress to where we're at. I think there's something in that. I think Australia's got this unique position that I'm sure they've got an answer for it. I'm not going to say it's in the butterfly pea that we've got or whether it's in the finger lime. There is something there that can help people. I don't believe pharmaceuticals will solve the answers of tomorrow. I believe something's there that we've had for thousands of years.
It's not called.
But there's no money in it.
It's not called Big Pharma for a reason.
Well, and a huge pharma. I still think they control too much of the world.
Well, we have not got time to go into.
We'll get into that next time.
Yeah. So let's.
Shit, it's 11:56.
That's
Got
all right.
4 minutes, JP.
No, I don't put
1 minute left.
I don't. No, I don't put times on these. We can talk for whatever. But I do have one thing that we ask everyone that comes on the show, and it is it won't be worried about you being dying, but if you died,
When?
just if you died and came back as a board game, what board game would you be reincarnated as? And so to give you time to think, my board game, I'd come back as Scrabble because you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes it's very valuable and sometimes it's not, depending on the points added. So everyone's a little bit different. We have people come back as I think we had a race car driver say he'd come back as Hungry Hippo, the board game Hungry Hippo. We had a guy come back as James Newbury. What was his? Articulate. So
Wow. Smart man.
He'd come back as a board game Articulate. We've had Snakes and Ladders. So there's been a varied selection.
I don't think I'd come back as a board game because that's.
Well, fuck, Angelo. This is the whole point.
I know. You come back as a different being. Hopefully, I've grown from that. But yeah, as the question probably is what my teachers used to say at the game of trouble. And you click it and you eventually get to the top. Once you go around the board, you need to go around once, twice, 3 times. Somebody beats you up and you get to number 1. So it probably is trouble.
Perfect. Done. So obviously, as you can tell, Angelo does not want to come back as a board game. But
no, you don't.
But
I would have gone from that.
Yeah, but coming back as a game of trouble.
Just changing people's lives. That's what I want to do.
So, Angelo, it's been fantastic having you.
Thank you.
For our guest number 11.
Wow.
So insightful.
For the other 10 in front of me, hopefully you've been less inspiring than me.
You know the advantage of doing this? Yeah. I get to learn so much off each person, and so does anyone that listens to, so it's been amazing. One last thing we've got to do is get you to sign the board behind you with some quote for whatever you want to say. There's a be happy, be healthy. There's people saying they enjoyed being here. There's people saying they like eating salt and vinegar chips.
Right.
So
I didn't get any salt and vinegar chips, but that's okay.
Yeah. So that was a big part of the story. It was about healthy eating and how I was not doing that. And so moving forward, thank you. Very much. Here. It's been fantastic. It's great speaking to people that Dad admires you. Amazing. I've had small interactions with you, and all of them been like it's just energy. You've said it today. I never realised that's how you were. Very enlightening to be able to have you here, and thank you very much.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. To COVID, thanks. And guys, thank you so much. And to your dad, it's great doing business with a good person. Thank you.
Thanks, Ange.
Ciao.